This is Serene, and she's about to see a whale. She thinks that if she sees an orca, it will be a highlight of her life. Little does she know there's much more to come. This is the story of Dr. Michael Noonan, who has dedicated his life to teaching students about this wonderful planet. And it's about a program he created in which those very students pass that passion along to children who will be the planet keepers in the next generation. Welcome to World Class, a journey of conservation education. It all starts back at Canisius College in Buffalo, New York, where Dr. Noonan begins every adventure with an audition defying the best of the best. His program is called Canisius Ambassadors for Conservation. To be a CAC, you've got to have special traits. You've got to have a passion for wildlife, and you've got to be able to teach younger kids. So Dr. Noonan puts every CAC through a very unique audition. He wants to see if they can capture the attention of middle schoolers.
Well, welcome everyone to the world of wombats.
Dave does a takeoff on an Australian outback adventurer. He's hoping to make it into the program to broaden his options for the future.
There are ferrets called domesticated ferrets.
Serene, well, she wants to be a medical doctor, but first her heart is set on getting to Alaska.
Hi boys and girls, my name is Bethany.
Bethany's hoping to make a career in conservation.
I'm going to start and talk about the African wild dog.
And Kristen, well, Kristen's very smart. She has a photographic memory and a thirst to learn.
So hippopotami are really big animals, and they can weigh about 7,000 pounds.
And Betsy? Well, Betsy already spends most of her time outdoors with her beloved horses. The question is, are these finalists the ones who have the ambition and dedication to help Mike Noonan inspire the next generation? He has one more test for them.
There's nothing. You don't have to be a great athlete to work in our program in Alaska, but we are going up and down mountains. We are going to be going over hills. We're going to be on our feet for 4 or 5 hours at a time. It's really not a problem. We're not going to be sprinting up the stairs and not going to be doing any super exercises. So just dress the way you are. We can just climb these stairs. You'll be great. It'll be great.
One thing the students are going to learn is when Mike Noonan says something is going to be great, it usually is. Except maybe this time.
Do your best, okay? It's not a race, but do try to keep up. Keep coming.
Kristen, in the pink, is at a little bit of a disadvantage in her high heels, but she's a pretty good sport, and of course she makes the team for her efforts.
It's harder to go downstairs in heels than up.
Okay, no, I know it's my fault. I didn't tell you about the shoes. It is so great to see the 5 of you together. This is the first time we're together as a new CAC team.
The assignment for this group is to learn about the National Wildlife Refuge System, and that means they're going to be heading to some amazing places. This adventure will be capped off by a trip to the largest American refuges, the ones found in our country's 50th state, the refuges of Alaska. The kicker is once they learn all they can, they're going to be asked to teach about the refuge system to middle schoolers at their home base, the Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge. And that's where they head first, to learn about how to teach about the wild side.
So another lesson that we can do while we're in the flooded woodlands portion of the habitat is you can point out how many trees are down. And a lot of people, if they're used to trim parklands, might be surprised at this. But you've got to remember that in reality, a messy forest is a healthy forest. If you can kind of, you know what you have to do with that? Don't go with your binoculars yet. You go with your naked eye until you see motion. And then once you see motion, then you know where to look. And I never thought we would see a pilot woodpecker. Now, when that happens, you darn well stop what you're doing and completely change your lesson. And give group hugs or do whatever you want to do with your kids, and make it a special moment, because that is really cool.
The plan is to hit as many refuges as possible before they take off for Alaska. And then there's studying to be done, at least for some. And a little bit of bonding.
This is a great song!
It does have a good beat, it's very catchy.
Well,
I'm glad to have you here. This, as you know, this is the Ohio River Islands National Wildlife Refuge, And we're on Middle Island, which is one of 22 islands in the refuge. So this is our largest island, and we are out here working on a problem that we have here on the refuge.
And?
And the problem is a non-native plant called garlic mustard. Garlic mustard is actually has been in this country probably since the early settlers.
Can they chip in and take a turn? You guys up for that?
We'd love to have them chip in.
So you know what's really great about this is the students got to get down and dirty and actually smell the smell and feel the feel and listen to the sounds of these invasive species being pulled out of the ground. And it's the real world. It's what the front line of wildlife conservation is all about. And the invasive species eradication involves often putting your hands on the plants and pulling them out by the roots.
Great position.
After that, a flurry of refuges, each distinctly different from the other.
Cliss? No, well, you did bring them, right? Garbage bags for boots? Good plan. Well, you know, anyway, take a look. It's an amazing accomplishment. It's an amazing example of what, animal evolution can accomplish. You can see how each piece of stick, just try to pull it out, is jammed one on top of the other.
That day when we did go out on the beaver dam, that kind of gave me, I guess, more of an idea of Dr. Noonan. I thought when we were originally going to go out there that, oh, this is nice, we're going to be able to go and see this, but it was that much better when we were able to get off of it and kind of go out and really learn more than what we normally would have, or if I was there by myself and maybe have just, gone on the pier. But to actually go out there and really experience it, that was great.
Okay, well, welcome you guys. My name is Nell, and welcome to Patuxent Research Refuge and the National Wildlife Visitor Center. As you see, this is a little bit different, probably than most of the visitor centers that you've been to, and
it's very different.
Yes, it is a national visitor center, and Patuxent is a very unique refuge in the whole refuge system in that it is the only refuge that was established to support research. It has a unique mission.
Meeting the people who work in these national wildlife refuges, whether it is being a biologist and working in the field, or if it's working with school groups like us and other visitors, you can tell they really enjoy what they're doing. But even more than that, they really want to share what they have with you. They're really eager to do that. So that's something that's really great. You really don't see that very often, but it's been consistent throughout this entire trip that pretty much everyone we've run into has had that same kind of characteristic.
So you can tell this is where the refuge, it has that classic look, a deliberately flooded plain to make a wetlands. I see progress in human affairs. I see the world now, not only the environment, but the social world now better than it was when I was young. There's more social justice now than there was. There's more people taking steps to keep the environment clean than there was. The air in New York City is cleaner now than when I was young. I have an optimistic view about the future, and I see the CAC students, they inspire me. These 5 young students this year and all the CAC students who've gone before, they're great people, and if they have anything to say about how the future is going to be, it's going to be a good future. Our challenge is to get all this goodwill and positive people to work in creative and constructive ways, and I see that actually happening. So I am fairly optimistic by nature and by experience.
The Canisius College Ambassadors for Conservation are off to Alaska.
These 2 colored markers.
By now, the kids are learning that Mike Noonan never rests, and it's not easy keeping up with him. He teaches all day long and constantly tests them. Even on the plane, it's study, study, study. To quote Mike Noonan, we can sleep when we're dead. Right now, it's time to
learn. What the word
learn.
aquatic mammal means. Aquatic mammal is a mammal who lives in the water. So, a river otter is an aquatic mammal, a hippopotamus is an aquatic mammal. But neither of those are marine mammals because they live in fresh water. But ecologically, a mammal that lives its life in or on the sea is a marine mammal.
Before they know it, they're in Alaska, and after a bit of logistical struggles, the lessons continue on the road.
But that way looks interesting.
Okay.
So here's I don't think we can make it up that hill.
No.
But there's a chance we can, and I'm prepared to give it a try. And we'll either make it up the hill or we'll see something on the way.
This was only the latest in a non-stop series of impromptu lessons that Dr. Noonan provided day after day.
You might want to dig in sideways, like that. Just like that. This is compared to the stair test that we did back at the Canisius Health Science.
This is a little more challenging.
I don't know, it's a tough call.
Tough call. The only difference is there were no sticks everywhere.
Right, yeah, or snow.
You know,
Or snow.
big slides, inclines.
So next year on the test I should include sticks and snow?
Yes.
Probably. Just slather the stairs. Oh, I have a good idea. Take a hose and hose the stairs down and then freeze it.
New sights and smells and sounds are everywhere.
Whoa, that looks like almonds.
Ew. Now I'm never going to be able to eat an almond again.
No, Bethany, those are not almonds. They belong to these guys, woodland caribou.
I hope you realize that.
That's awesome.
Now we're somewhere else.
And after the caribou, there was an eagle, an owl, a porcupine, and dozens of beautiful moose. Back at the Burnt Paw Cabins in Tok, Alaska, the CACs are still on New York time, and it's 3 a.m. on their tired bodies. But Mike Noonan is driving them like it's a new day. And up next is something he's been really looking forward to, the presentations he asked them to prepare from their assigned readings. First up is Bethany, and then Dave, and then Kristen, and all do pretty well for that hour. But Serene, a perfectionist and very hard worker, just isn't ready for prime
I'm
time.
working on it. This clipping is a pain. I should have written it down. Anyways.
Nope.
Anyway.
Very good.
Anyway. I'm sorry. There are particular species found in freshwater marshes. And one of the most prominent species that has one of the greatest effects is the muskrat. And this is so I was very nervous that he was going to be disappointed in my performance, especially being compared to the other CAC students who just did outstanding jobs. But even through my anxiety, he never said a word. He was always very encouraging. He only had positive things to say. He knew that we were under time constraints and that we were underneath the pressure of the van. And of course, getting out to see a moose is a bigger deal. And I think that he had a lot of faith in me, and he had a lot of confidence in me that even though my presentation wasn't the greatest, he knows that I now know the information and that I've learned from my mistakes. And I think that was more important to him than anything, is just that I learned about myself, what it is that I need to do to succeed for the next time.
So you've been studying it? Each time we go out in the field, I have an agenda. I don't explain the agenda, because if I explain the agenda, it's number one, stealing my own thunder as a lesson, and number two, it's not. I don't want it to be a verbal lesson. I want it to be an emotional, first-hand, experiential lesson. So it's one thing to read about a fen, for example, and it's just words on a page, and the students learn, for example, that a fen is a wetlands that water runs through and it's kind of boggy ground and so on. But it's an entirely different experience to just say to the students, let's take a walk across this field, and the students discover the fact that there's water running through the field, and that the ground is very soft, and the ground is very uneven, and it's very difficult to walk on, and it's something that they've never experienced before, and then they finally make the connection, aha, this is the thing that I read about, this is a fen. And I want them to feel it with their feet, I want them to feel it with their nose, I want them to feel it with their souls.
Here in Kenai, Mike has another lesson. This one is going to be about bears. To do this, he's decided to take them into bear habitat, and this means directly into a very thorny thicket. This is going to test their self-confidence, stamina, and dedication to the program.
tell you, I have never been more impressed with the group. What you just accomplished is harder than any other hike that I've ever seen a group accomplish. The self-control that's necessary to put up with all those thorns, keep your balance. I'm very, very impressed. You guys want to know what bear habitat is like? This is it. You see why they have such thick fur. They can charge right through this brush. We're going to go over this rise, and for the first time, we're going to encounter the other side of this valley. So this is our first real reveal in the sense of revealing a potential animal. So let's go over this quietly. Let's go over with just our eyes first, take a look, see what we might get.
The CACs worked very hard on the mountain that day. It was a treacherous climb, and almost everyone got prickers in their fingers. But the payoff was huge.
Look! It's a bear!
Yes, it was.
I do not get out much, and I do not see wildlife much, and when we saw that bear, I was gone. I just lost it, and I felt bad afterwards because Dr. Noonan was like, shut up, shh. Of course, it was a little bit nerve-wracking being that the bear was only a juvenile. Everyone was busy focusing on where's the mother.
I'm Mike Noonan.
Dr. Noonan takes the students to yet another unique ecosystem. Again, it's entirely up close and personal.
Well, orca whales are one of my absolute favorite animals. I definitely have a special place for them in my heart just because I already do research with them. But of course I do research up at Marineland in Canada with captive whales. But when you actually go out and see these whales, these same whales, out in their native habitat in the wild, it is just a breathtaking experience.
You have four kinds of patterns. You have traveling, and we can conclude it's not traveling. You can have socializing. They don't seem to be doing that. You can have resting, and the other alternative is foraging, and this one matches a foraging pattern where they're all spread out, going in individual directions, zigzagging back and forth across the bay.
It was just amazing, absolutely amazing to see that orca come right up next to the boat. I've never seen anything like it, and that's going to be one of the experiences I carry with me for the rest of my life.
And yet again, Mike Noonan has one more surprise up his sleeve. While the kids practice their presentation, he ponders just how to deliver this next bit of news.
You may or may not have noticed that periodically I have occasionally just found myself driving along and smiling. And it is because I have been keeping a great secret.
Oh, God.
I have been keeping a great secret. We are going to Barrow.
Where's it?
What's Barrow?
Barrow is the northernmost point of North America.
Are you serious?
We
No
are
way.
going to Barrow.
How do we get there?
Push point?
We are here, and we are going to there.
Oh my God!
Holy crap! Wow.
A mile of ice still on shore. A polar bear was sighted 2 days ago.
Are we gonna go looking for polar bear? Polar bear hunting! No. Oh
Is
my
there
God! We're gonna look for a polar bear.
We are going to be meeting up with an Inuit guide who is going to take us in a safe vehicle looking for polar bears.
Oh my God!
Wow. That's tomorrow. Today's tonight,
The
and
day
that's
after
tomorrow.
That was awesome, Betsy.
Two more nights, and then we go.
Soon the CACs boarded a bush plane and prepared to fly over the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, where Mike was hoping to get a shot of some polar bears through an open plane window. While the pilot circles at 110 miles an hour, Mike Noonan takes the best video he can, fighting the wind at that open window. It turned out it was the carcass of a dead whale that Mike had spotted from the air, and it was this that had brought the mother polar bear in close to shore. Once again, he wanted the students to have a visceral experience of this very special land. While keeping an eye on safety, Dr. Noonan was able to expose the CACs to some of the most magnificent animals on Earth.
And so we went out, and lo and behold, it wasn't just a polar bear. As soon as we came close, it was clear that there was a full adult polar bear. But then shortly afterwards, you see running behind her is a baby, and then running behind that baby is another baby, and then running behind that is a third. And it was also just an amazingly fascinating example of animal behavior. This mother was moving north. She was leaving the whale carcass and moving her and her babies back onto the ice, and she stopped on 3 separate occasions and waited for this injured cub to catch up. And that you know, a naive human might think, well, of course she did. Not all animal species do that. And the fact that she did it 3 times, and the fact that she did it even though I think it was reasonable to infer she clearly wanted to be back on the ice, it was a great experience. Just to be in the presence of wild polar bears, I just felt so alive and so electric, and felt like it was the culmination of our trip to the Arctic. For me, it was magic. Personally, it was magic.
In another location on the tundra, the CACs get up close and personal with the land.
I would sleep in it every day. I would make it my bed.
On a serious note, when we've already heard and we've read that some people think this is what Anwar is like, and we're in an untouched area here, or at least an undeveloped area of tundra. There's 2 ways of looking at it, 2 kind of polarized alternatives. One is this is one of the last great untouched places on Earth and should remain untouched because it's just so pure, or it's a frozen wasteland and it might as well have oil wells on it.
I can see why they would say it, but at the same time I can see the other point of view, because there are some awesome birds and things in this area that we can't find anywhere else.
It's not a wasteland. It's a wild place for wildlife. It's not a wasteland. If you can call this a wasteland, then you could say that about any of the other refuges that we visited. And what about Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge? Should we let somebody call that a wasteland just because it's a wetlands that's not inhabited by people? This is a wild place for wildlife. It's not a wasteland.
Well, I'm very pleased. I really wanted the students to see the tundra for themselves so they can make their own decisions about this very pressing issue. And for me, it was like a defining moment for the CAC experience this year. The students were really thinking, well, maybe, what are we looking at? A big open empty space. And it was Betsy, who has been shy through a lot of this experience. She stepped forward and she made the statement, no, it's not a wasteland. We could say that about anything, is what she said. The teacher in me was just pleased as could be. It just couldn't have been better.
As the CACs leave the tundra, it's time to turn their attention to home and their next set of challenges, teaching what they've learned.
Whoever made the schedule for this year's CAC must have been crazy, and I know that's a joke, of course, because I made the schedule for this year's CAC. I allowed for only 1 day from the time we arrived back from Alaska to the time we started making presentations at Iroquois National Wildlife Refuge, and now that's one of the reasons why every day while we were on the road, I just said we have to practice. Each evening we would go through these practices and getting our program together, because I just knew that we were going to have this intense 24-hour period. I mean, I had everybody come to Canisius College, and we worked like feverishly on fine-tuning our PowerPoints and fine-tuning our scripts. And then came my favorite stage of CAC. I know I have all these favorite stages, but this is another one of my favorite stages, and it's called the pass-off stage. At least in my mind, it's the pass-off. It's when I pass off the program from the people that I'm training, these trainees, I pass it off to them because they're ready. And I saw by the end of that frantic day that they were ready. And I was so proud of these kids. They performed flawlessly.
Everyone just move a little bit further down so everyone can get in and get around here. The adults will probably go in the back.
And you know how your mothers always tell you, or your parents always tell you to keep your rooms nice? Thank you. To keep your rooms nice and clean. Well, in the forest, it's actually the opposite, and you're actually supposed to be very messy in the forest, because a messy forest is a healthy forest.
So all the trees down here, they help to make more nutrients. So it's good to have all the messy trees all around. Okay?
Woodpecker holes. Look at this tree right down here where it's all really low. Look at the size of these holes. You can tell by the size they're definitely probably a pileated woodpecker. And like I showed you guys before, this is a pileated woodpecker. Anyone remember Woody the Woodpecker, the cartoon character? Yeah. He's a pileated woodpecker.
Whoa. What do you think a woodpecker eats? Wood.
Insects in the wood.
A lot of people think it's wood, but it's actually not. They drill in here, and that's right. They go for like grubs that are found within the tree.
Yeah, we've had a lot of different kinds of kids. Some inner city kids, some kids from out country area, trying to grab kids' attention while they're still in their last week of school because they're almost done. So field trip, woohoo, out of the classroom, we're done. But everybody's been really great.
So we gotta count the holes.
So yeah, you count. That's gonna take a while.
Anytime you have a chance for public speaking, it's gonna be useful. Whether you're thinking, you can think a little bit faster on your feet, or you can articulate what you're gonna say better. But I think every day you learn something more and different group dynamics. If nothing else, I appreciate teachers all that much more.
Okay, we did that one. Yeah, that's the exact type of beetle that you guys are looking for. It's really little and it's usually a brownish orangish color.
It is one.
And they usually like to hide.
I have learned, hopefully, just as much as the kids have been learning. I mean, we kind of are working together and getting through this, but it's really been a lot of fun. I was skeptical about it at first, wondering whether or not I was going to do okay in teaching and being able to communicate with them, but it's really been fantastic. I mean, I certainly have learned a ton just by doing it. And the kids have been great. I mean, all of the groups have really been wonderful. We've certainly had a diverse range of skills and personalities, but we've been able to cope with all of it. And we've been able to bring out the best and just have a great time. And I hope the kids are having as much fun as we are.
Plant vocal stuff? Awesome. Now remember, 10 stems of loosestrife, 10 stems of cattail, count the beetles, and then one each.
Seeing wildlife firsthand, seeing the mountains on the horizon, climbing a mountain has shown me not only how much lies within me, but how much there is outside of myself that I never even realized.
The thing is, we share together something that will never pass. Our lives have touched in a way that they'll be that those students will be part of me, and I will be part of them for as long as we live. And that's a wonderful thing. I mean, what more can you ask as a teacher than that? I believe, touched their lives, and I assure you that they have touched my life, and that's great. That's great.